Good morning. Good morning, Ignite. A little better. Welcome to Embrace Office 365 Groups, what's new and how to get started. My name is Christophe, alongside Mike. We're both program managers on the Office 365 group stream, and it's definitely a pleasure to talk about our favorite product. Now, just a caveat, this is a 200-level session, and you'll see throughout the presentation, we'll be referencing some deeper sessions that we have throughout the week. Now, what are we going to do for the next 75 minutes? We basically have three sections. The first theme is to give you an overview of Office 365 groups. One of the questions we get quite often, we're both staffing the booth yesterday, and what is groups? Is Teams replacing groups? Should I care about groups? How does it fit in our M365 strategy, et cetera, et cetera? So we'll try to answer that question in that first section. Then the next section is probably what you'll hear about, which is, great, I get it, but how do I administer and govern Office 365 groups at scale? So we'll be talking about some of the latest innovation we've delivered for the past year. We'll be doing some demos. And that leads us to the last section, which is great. I get what groups is. I get how to manage it, but how do I get started? Maybe I only started with, let's say, OneDrive or Pro Plus in the cloud. I'm still running some Exchange on premises. How about my Active Directory and stuff like that? What should I do with Teams and Yammer? And so we'll start giving you some of the best practices to get started with that journey of adopting groups. And then we'll wrap up with that last section with our roadmap, which is, again, probably one thing you'll care about. And then in each, we'll be doing product demos. So let's get started. So first, I'll start very high level, and hopefully you all attended the keynote yesterday from Satya Nadella, when he's talking about digital intensity, and you hopefully attended, some of the teamwork sessions that have been delivered yesterday or this morning. But the high-level point is, why are we here today? Because the way we get work done at our company, whether you're a large company, whether you're commercial, whether you're from Europe, whether you're education, things have changed. And there's definitely challenges that you need to tackle to enable users to collaborate this day and age. People need to collaborate more. People are member of more teams just to get work done. You have this notion that collaboration doesn't stop in the four walls of your organization. You always need to bring that expert who's not part of your Active Directory. You might need to bring Christophe. Hey, Christophe, I've got a question about groups. Can I just bring you in my team so you can answer questions so everyone can see it? And so forth. People have the expectation that they should be working remotely. People need to engage. So those are some of the high-level trends that we see on this notion of teamwork. And then the answer is, okay, what are we doing, Microsoft, to tackle those trends and offer solutions? So the idea is for teamwork, and again, I'm going high level. I should have mentioned that think of teamwork as one of the 4 pillars of Microsoft 365. And that's what we're going to be focusing on. But our offering in that space basically relies on 3 pillars. We give you seamless experience for people to get work done, and we'll definitely be showing you the apps in later slides. We want to put you in the driver's seats and make sure you're in the hero at all times. That's this notion of simplify IT. That was one of the core DNA of groups, was to simplify how you manage membership and permissioning. And then last but not least, again, in this notion of putting you in the driver's seats, we want to give you insights so you're ahead of the game on how users collaborating, what's happening, where potentially someone might get in trouble, and et cetera, et cetera. So that leads us into, okay, I get the high level, but how does it fit into our landscape of application for teamwork? And I don't know if you've seen that already yesterday. Feel free to take pictures, download the slides. But the high level is there's different use cases on how you get work done. On the left-hand side, there's this notion of people you work with regularly. And for that, our hero application is Microsoft Teams. That's what we call the inner loop. On the left-hand side, you've got people where you want to connect across the organization. You might not know Mike. You might not know Zohar, but there's somewhere outside of your direct team that there might be an expert that might save your bacon and answer your question. And then last but not least, there's always email. it's ubiquitous. I can target an email, I can write a long form, and then I know by nature of being emailed, then that email can be forwarded, it can be forked, whatever I want it to do. A lot of people say, okay, Christophe, I get the theory, but how you use it internally. And the high level, we actually use Teams quite a bit, especially when we're working on feature crews or specific specs or with a direct team. But I use Yammer. We have a dedicated community to answer questions and answers from our field. Again, Yammer is the perfect use case for that because I don't keep track of the 120,000 employees that are at Microsoft. And there's always someone new, always someone that has a question that doesn't know the expert in Redmond, and Yammer is great at that. And obviously email, I use email quite a bit, especially when I provide a status or an update, and I'm expecting maybe that update, where it's a milestone on a project, potentially to be sent to different teams with Microsoft. Now, at the center of those three communication apps, you obviously our hero for content is SharePoint, right? We'll talk about that later, but SharePoint, SharePoint, SharePoint. Every time you want to share a document, co-author, and all the things, everything else that comes with SharePoint, every group will provision a SharePoint site. One of the new kid on the block, is Stream. It hasn't been that long since we've launched it, and I know there's been already quite a few sessions, but anything that smells video, whether you're doing a live event or just sharing video for readiness, whatever it is, Stream is the hero app for that. Now, how does this all fit? At the bottom, if you can see, there's this layer called Office 365 Groups. It doesn't matter any of those apps, and there's more, they all built on this bedrock that's called Office 365 Groups. And that leads me into my next slide, which is, okay, Christophe, what is Office 365 Groups? And so this is a slide to try to land that point. The tagline, single identity for teamwork and beyond. So let me unpack that a little bit. First of all, Office 365 Groups, it's that membership service for all the teamwork apps. And, it goes into all the historical apps we've had, whether it was SharePoint or Exchange, Outlook, or some of the newer apps, like I mentioned, Stream or Planner or Yammer or Forms is some of the new apps, or Staff Hub, if you're in the hospitality business and you need to do shift scheduling. So that's the first thing that groups provide. The second thing it gives you is this notion of centrally managed and governed. The idea, again, if you remember one of the pillars, we want to, unify IT, and we want to put you in the hero seat, and that's our goal with group. A lot of the things I'll be talking about in administration, it's like centrally managed. You can set up a policy, and it applies to all the group, whether people are using more the team chat for persistent chat, or they're using it more for a community of interest with Yammer. It's all the same. And then the last piece, it's extensible. Whether you want to integrate groups with your favorite line of business application, whether you want to create a custom provisioning systems so that when people request a group, they have to fill in a form, we do have API for that. The other point I want to make about this is, a lot of people are asking, hey, is group a platform or an app? And it's actually a little bit of both. We actually, Mike and I, are focused on the platform, on our day-to-day job back in Redmond, and how do we make the platform better? But our customers internally, in addition to all of you in the room, are our colleagues that are working on Teams, our colleagues that are working on Microsoft Forms, our colleagues that are working in Planner. So not only do we want to make the platform great, but at the end of the day, we want to please the end users. So that's one question about groups. Is it a platform or an app? The other thing, again, I want to be very clear. I get this question, should I be using groups or Teams? Or now that Teams is launched, is groups going away? Again, think of the question, bless you, every Teams will create a group. So the better question is, should I be using email or should I be using persistent chat? And someone's clapping. Thank you. I'll give you a pen. I've got a Microsoft branded pen. I don't have any swag, but this guy does. No, but anyway, I know it's sometimes not easy, and you got to think use case and scenario versus app. But again, every team will create a group. There is no options around that. So again, think about that. So the other thing we got at the booth is groups going away. Absolutely not. And that leads to the tagline. Notice single identity for teamwork and beyond. We have bold ambitions for groups. For instance, yesterday, the new version of Project Online, for instance, is building on groups. So we have more apps that are going to leverage this canvas that's used by all the teamwork apps. The other thing we want to do is we also realize that a lot of you are still mastering objects in on-premises Active Directory. And on that journey to transitioning to Azure Active Directory, there's a lot of things you've asked us to make it easier. And so we have a bold ambition, and that's the and beyond in the tagline, that we know there's a backlog of things you've asked so that we can go a lot further to make really Office 365 groups the hero objects in your Active Directory. Now with that, let's start talking about some of the key innovations we've did with respect to the groups apps.
Great, thanks, Christoph. So now that we've covered the basics of teamwork in Microsoft 365 and discussed the foundational building blocks of the Office 365 Groups platform, let's talk a little bit about some of the key innovations we've seen across the platform in the past year. It's important to remember that Groups is not just an experience in Outlook. It's actually the foundational membership service that drives collaboration across all the apps in the suite, like SharePoint, Teams, Yammer, Planner, and many others. When we stood up here on stage a year ago, there were a stack of enhancements that we talked about in a roadmap, so I'm really excited to get some of these into the hands of our end users. When you look at SharePoint, there's a ton of features that have rolled out around how to help aggregate and manage the sites that are connected to Office 365 Groups. We have deeper Teams integration that we'll see today. When you look at Outlook and some of these other experiences in our apps, we've really done a lot of work to listen to the feedback from our users and customers and understand how they're using our products. For example, we learned from our users that groups which are created private are actually the most engaged groups in the service. That's why now in Outlook, when you create a group, it'll actually be private by default. This was a huge change. Also, we've fine-tuned the subscription settings that are available for how group members participate in their Office 365 groups. When you look at Teams and Planner, there are some scenarios that we shipped a year ago. For example, guest access. This was a feature where you could invite someone outside of your organization to collaborate, reply to email, and get access to files. We've now extended this deeper into the platform. You can now assign tasks and participate with guests inside Planner. And this week, we're announcing you can actually share Microsoft Teams chat with someone outside of your organization. So these are really huge. Like Christoph mentioned, we're also extending the group's ecosystem. The family's growing, and in the past year, we've announced new integrations like Microsoft Forms. This was probably the #1 most highly requested feature in the Forms user voice. They wanted the ability for a form to be owned by a group. That way, if I create a form and then I send out a survey to my organization, I go on vacation for a couple of weeks, Christoph will have access to the results and he can start following up on all these analytics. So Forms is great. And also yesterday there was a new service announced by the Microsoft project team that'll help you manage your roadmaps, also backed by Office 365 Groups. So this is pretty huge. This is just a snapshot of some of the features that we've shipped this year. So now that we've walked through this, let's take a look at some demos and see some of these in action. All right, so we're going to start our demos in Yammer. Quick quiz for the audience. Who can raise their hand and tell me how old Yammer is?
10 years.
Okay, I saw your hand go up first. I'm going to give you a prize at the end of the session. You're right, 10 years. Maybe you're in the 9 o'clock session. I don't know. But yes, Yammer, we're actually celebrating Yammer's 10th anniversary this week. Round of applause for Yammer. Woo! Awesome. It's amazing how much impact they've had considering the evolution of our industry in the last 10 years. So here, Yammer is great for connecting across your organization. You can reach out to another department, find a subject matter expert. It also allows you to connect with the leadership team in your organization. So my leaders can create a dialogue, listen for feedback, and understand what possibly needs to be changed or incorporated in their organization. One way that's normally facilitated is through something like an all-hands or a town hall meeting. So Yammer has now introduced a new feature right here in Yammer, which is in preview, called Live Events. So when I'm in Yammer, I can click Create Live Event. And now what it's going to do is it's going to launch Microsoft Teams to help me schedule this live event meeting. So here I can say Ignite Demo Tuesday 2018. And when I click Next, it's going to provide a couple of options around how I want to broadcast this live event. So here I'm going to create a video on demand, and if I wanted to, I can include captions when I'm done with this meeting. Now, when I click Schedule, what we're doing is we're creating an instance of this town hall meeting, and it's going to be scheduled right here in Microsoft Teams. You'll see here on this dialog, it's actually telling me this will be hosted in my Leadership Connection group, which is where I was in Yammer. And then it will be published in Stream in Yammer when we're finished. And then down here, I'll have a link to the broadcast in Stream. When I flip back over here to Yammer, I'll just refresh this. The meeting that's been scheduled in Teams is now going to be available in my Yammer feed for my Yammer users. So over here on the right-hand side, I have a list of group events that are being published. And then what happens is when this meeting is hosted here in Yammer, it ends up being a live feed on which my users can comment and post and have a dialogue. All of these meetings are now pushed into Microsoft Stream once they're done and available here for viewing afterwards. So my users, whether they attended the meeting or not, they can come back here, they can broadcast this, they can see the content that was shared, and they can look at all this great information. So here, what's interesting is that we're not just shipping one single feature, right? We're actually handling the 3 distinct phases of hosting a live event. There's the scheduling of the meeting, the generating of the demand, then there's the hosting and the running of the meeting with the technologies required to host this meeting, and then there's the post-production follow-up to make this recording available afterwards. And I think Yammer, Teams, and Stream have done a really good job stitching this together using the technologies available through the Groups platform. How about a round of applause for Yammer? Woo! Great, so staying in Yammer for just a moment, I want to talk about a feature we promised this time last year. Probably on a weekly basis, I hear from Yammer customers that want to make sure SharePoint is their default files location for all files uploaded to Yammer. If you're familiar with Yammer, you know you can create an Office 365 group tied to a Yammer group, and you have a SharePoint files location, but any files uploaded to the Yammer feed were stored in the native Yammer service. This means that they're stored in a separate location and not covered underneath the governance and compliance that's built around SharePoint. Well, now, for the first time ever, you can actually configure Yammer so that all files uploaded to the feed are also stored in SharePoint. Let's see how that works. So here, within my feed, if I click upload a Yammer file, select something from my machine here, I can say here is the document. You can see the file's being uploaded. Now it's done. And when I hit post, the file is now right here in my Yammer feed. I already have a preview. Bless you. And my users can start commenting. They can like this. They're aware that I've now worked on this file. When I flip over here to SharePoint, you see my SharePoint site is already updated inside my leadership connection group, and I have that brand new file uploaded right here to SharePoint. How do you like that? So this is great because now my organization knows that all their files are stored in the same place, covered underneath the same retention policies that they've built into SharePoint. This is going to be huge. So staying with the file scenario for just a moment, if I transition over to Outlook, we know that about this time a year ago, we launched a great native files experience right here in Outlook. It really allowed group members to get quick access to the files that have recently been uploaded, modified, or even emailed to their group. What we've done over the past year is completely overhaul this experience. You're now looking at a shared control that's built by the SharePoint team, and now it's the same exact SharePoint control that's used in SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, or any of the other files experiences. This is actually a really great example of driving this consistency and coherent experience across the suite. It's allowed us to deliver probably the #1 most requested feature in the files experience, which is the hierarchy of folders that are available inside SharePoint. I know this was asked by a ton of customers. So now as I drill into my folder hierarchy, I can actually create new documents, new folders. I can upload files. I can even delete files from right here within Outlook. This was never available before. So this is really a step up from the files experience that we had previously. And again, I'm also going to point out that any new features added to this control in SharePoint or anywhere else will now be inherited by Outlook and available right here inside Outlook. How do you like that? All right, so stepping back and looking at Outlook as a whole just for a moment, if you take a look at the user experience, we've really done a lot of work to streamline the interactions for how your groups display and sort it. It's very, very responsive. And what this has really allowed us to do is incorporate a lot of user feedback, like bringing things like search front and center in the Outlook experience, as well as favorites and how you get access to your groups and your left navigation and in your central pane. And this is really a result of a lot of work across the Outlook team to really understand how users want to interact and the technologies that we want to leverage to really bring a great, rich Outlook experience to groups. Now, when I'm in Outlook here, yes, I have the list of all my conversations, and I can drill in and review all the meetings that are sent. But we know that users are very interested in who's participating in this group and the services that are connected to this group. That's why we've done a ton of work to improve the group card experience. So here, when I click my group name, we quickly render the links to our related services and show a quick snapshot of the members of the group. Through our research, we know that the #1 most requested scenario is to drill in and take a look at the actual members to find out who we're actually collaborating with. And that's why we've designed this really rich level 2 group card, which gives you a snapshot of the members in the group, pulls in their titles, shows you their role, whether they're an owner or a member. Here I can quickly remove somebody from the group if I need to. I also have quick access to some of those fine-tuned settings I mentioned around whether or not I want emails delivered directly to my inbox. So this is great. It's a very rich experience, and you'll see this also flow through the various apps like SharePoint, Planner, and Teams. But we knew that with Outlook, we really needed to offer something more. Right? This is a great management experience, but as the number of groups has grown, people wanted more than just a list of groups in their left-hand navigation to manage their groups. So what we've done, and this has been shown this week for the first time ever, is actually build a very rich native experience into the people pane inside Outlook. So now, when I click the people pane, I actually have a section down here at the bottom that will show me all of the groups to which I've been joined, as well as all the groups of which I own. So now, when I'm inside Outlook, I have a nice rich experience for each of the groups that I belong to. If I need to quickly catch up on email, or perhaps look at the recent files that have been uploaded, or even look at the members in my group. Now, the real power with this experience comes around the ownership scenario. When I'm an owner of a group, there are now a few different actions I may need to take. For example, in this group here, it looks like it's going to expire within the next 26 days. So using the Groups Hub, we're able to quickly notify the owner, hey, there's something that they need to take action on. That's why we have a nice exclamation point here. And right here from within Groups Hub, I can renew this group and extend its life cycle. Now, this group here has a slightly different action. Here, we actually have a pending membership request. Someone else has requested to join our group, and one of the group owners must approve this. Now, before this Groups Hub, an email would be sent to each of the group owners. And as a group owner, I'd come in, I'd go to add them, I'd see, oh, looks like maybe Christoph already did this, I already see them in the group. Well, I guess that's taken care of. But it was kind of vague. And so now what we've done is we've actually surfaced these membership requests here in the ownership experience. So if I approve this, when Christoph comes in, he knows it's done, and he doesn't have to take care of anything. What do you think about Groups Hub? Nice. Great. So one of the reasons the membership management is so important is that we're now collaborating with both people inside and outside of our organization. So I'm going to transition over to Teams for just a sec. Like I mentioned earlier, Teams this week announced they actually have guest access support from within Teams for other org ID users. So now, from within my Contoso tenant, I can click the group name here at the top inside my Teams experience to get to my membership management pane. And if I look for, let's say I look for Christoph here, he's not in my group yet, right? He's not inside this tenant. But if I click Add Member, then I type Christoph's name, it's actually going to go search my directory and find Christoph as a guest. So now I can add him to my team in Microsoft Teams. He's going to be labeled as a guest. And when I close, now he's an actual member of my team. Yes, he's outside my domain, but we've all agreed we like Christoph. We're going to collaborate with him. He's a pretty nice guy. And so now he's right here inside Microsoft Teams. Once that addition process finishes, my team will be flagged up here as a team with guests. And then when I come in and I drill into that membership managed experience in the future, we flag that this team has guests just like we do in Outlook and all of our other experiences. How do you like that? Great. So I know we covered a lot. You can go and flip back. So I just want to recap. Right? We showed some brand new end-to-end scenarios using Yammer, Teams, and Stream to host live events. We showed an upgraded files upload experience directly into SharePoint. Overhauled file experience in Outlook, taking advantage of shared controls. Improved group card. Brand new Groups Hub. And external guest access on Microsoft Teams. What do you think? Pretty cool? All right, so now I've covered this, I'm going to hand it off to Christoph to talk about how to manage all these awesome groups.
Great. So again, to make sure you're following along, we showed you all the group app innovations. I'll be talking about some of the innovations around administration and governance. That's the next topic. So, there's this slide, think of it as like a cheat sheet of some of the key things you need to think about as you deploy groups. First of all, on the left-hand side, yes, you can control self-service, and we'll talk about that later. Ideally, if I follow Satya's pitch yesterday, you want to embrace the latest so you can transform yourself. But we do have knobs. And the reason, by the way, when you download the slides, each of those goes straight to the article, and there's a couple hidden slides with more detail. So I know I'm going to skip some of them, but there's definitely more content available. Self-delete and restore, we've introduced already, I think 18 months ago, this mechanism that if a group gets deleted, either intentionally or unintentionally, you do have this safety net, where the groups can be fully restored within 30 days. And when I say fully, when you restore the group, obviously it restores the object in Azure Active Directory, but all the apps that group was used for are restored as well, whether it's Teams or it's SharePoint or it's Planner, the mailbox, et cetera, et cetera. Policy on information protection, we probably can do a full session about that. But the idea is, yes, you can implement usage guidelines. You can implement classifications. Yes, you can set up a retention policy if you want to retain the data forever, or 5 years, or 7 years if you need to be SEC compliant. Yes, you can put in a deletion policy if you wanted to. And again, there's links on how to do that. How do we support labels and stuff like that today? Again, a lot of those features were shipped already 18 months ago, so that's why I'm going to repeat that today. The other topic is, we all have distribution groups or DLs in our organizations, and we do have a nice mechanism that, again, we launched over a year ago that scans all your distribution list and tells you which one are eligible to upgrade. The number one question I get is, first of all, Microsoft, are you still using DLs? Yes, we are, but that number is definitely going down. And then the next question is, why should I move from a distribution list to either Groups at Outlook or Yammer, and typically, or Teams? And typically, for all those three apps, if you remember that circle that I showed you earlier, the number one reason is you get history. Whether I use Groups in Outlook, Teams, or Yammer, if I join Mike's team tomorrow, I get the history of all the conversation. I don't need to ask again, where is our weekly stand-up? Where is our Friday happy hour? Show me the specs, show me the notes, right? So really, whereas in a DL, if I join Mike's team and he's still using a DL, I'm flying blind till that moment I get accepted in the distribution list, right? There's no history. So again, as you're competing and you want to be more, the world out there is fiercely competitive. You want new employees or new people joining your team to onboard as fast as possible. So the 4 features on the right, or the 4 key things, are the ones I'm going to go in details because those have generated a lot of questions, and that's also some of the stuff I'll be demoing. So let's start with the first one, which is naming policy. So this feature is in public preview. We've demoed last year at Ignite. Now you can all kick the tires. It's expected to release by the end of the year. But again, the goal is sure, self-service is the goal. That's why we want you to empower the users to make those decisions. But with that, we're fully aware that you might need some bounds on checks to keep that garden, which is your Active Directory, nicely groomed. And whether you want to prefix the name of a group with a fixed string or suffix it with a dynamic string based on user attribute, that's what this offers. So Christophe types in a name and decorated name comes out, and voila. Or the other reason is you probably have reserved word or block words in your organization. For instance, you don't want Christophe to create sales@contoso.com, or you don't want Christophe to impersonate the CEO and say, let me create a group called Satya Nadella and pretend I'm the CEO, and then I start getting confidential email. So that's also what this feature gives you, is the ability to reserve some specific names so everyone stays out of trouble. So some guidance, obviously you don't want to go too crazy on the naming suffix. There is a limit, but, and again, there's documentation, and I'll be demoing that. So that's naming policy in public preview. The next one, which we released, again, we've demoed at Ignite last year, and it was released back in February, with pardon me, it's this notion of expiry policy. And the idea is, again, I get, you want self-service, but also with self-service, there's potentially things that could be decommissioned, especially this notion where, collaboration is, in this day and age, it's not just those 3-year projects, but you might collaborate this week when you're meeting customers at Ignite. And that lifespan of that project is a week. And maybe at the end of the week, that project is no longer needed. It was mainly used to say, where do we go for happy hour, where we're having dinner tonight, meet me at the booth, whatever. So this expiry policy is something you configure, and from an end user perspective, that owner of the group is going to be reminded, hey, Christophe, do you still need the Ignite 2017 Teams? And maybe I don't need it anymore. And if I don't renew, then what happens is that Teams, for instance, will get deleted. You still have the 30-day safety net, and if I still don't raise my hand, then it's permanently deleted. So again, it's the notion of grooming that garden at scale, so you don't have to bug all those users manually to figure out, hey, do you still need that group and all the apps tied to it? Some of the best practices is definitely, you'll see when I show you the settings, but start small, scope it out to a set of groups. And because again, if you set up that and you haven't trained your users, potentially it's going to generate a lot of call tickets with your support team. So definitely the other thing is onboard your support team so they know when they get a request to know how to handle that. And then the other thing is, that's the out-of-the-box thing we've delivered in March. I'll be talking about the roadmap on what are we doing to improve these features based on feedback from some of you in the room. Next thing is guest access. Might give you a glimpse how you can add Christophe, and that's actually a true use case. There's a lot of customers, maybe you in the room, where I've been added to their teams and they're asking me questions, and that's great because for me it's seamless, for them it's seamless. They get the history of all the Q&A with Christophe, so they can share that with other folks internally. And for me, I'm just going, I'm still using Teams, and it's persistent, yada, yada, yada. Now, over the years, we've delivered guest access over 2 years, and we've been, again, you've given us a lot of feedback. What can you do to govern access? And this is a laundry list. So some of the things we've released, for instance, this year, I think it was February, March, it was when we did a lot of the GDPR announcement, but the idea that you want to be able to whitelist either your favorite partner or blacklist your #1 competitor. We support that. Guest invite role, this notion of maybe within your organization, you only want a limited set of folks that can invite those foreign objects into your tenant. Terms of use, actually was demo yesterday in one of the Azure session, but when Christophe is invited, maybe you want to present a little page. Hey, Christophe, you're invited to the Contoso tenants. Here are the rules of engagement. Here's what you should do and not do. And if you fail on any of those, you've been warned, right? And then access review, I'll show you that. The notion of access review is you invite a guest, but the owner needs to reattest. Is this guest legit? Is it on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, you decide. The other thing that I want to stress is at all points, we've got rich audit logs. You can see when Christophe logged in. You can see what Christophe did. So again, you're not flying blind, and that's some of the things you need to put in place to put proper governance. Because at the end of the day, we are encouraging you to leverage that. Like I said earlier, collaboration no longer stops within your Active Directory. You're always going to need that expert from the outside. I guess we dimmed the light. Maybe the session is over. Not quite. And lots of links on the right-hand side. Groups reporting, again, we get this question quite a bit. We do have some insights on how groups are being used. This is a laundry list. Again, take pictures. And by the way, again, all the slides are available, so definitely take pictures. And I'm saying get the slides because, again, what to me is valuable is the links to all those articles. So whether you want out-of-the-box report in the reporting in the M365 Admin Center, or one of the new kit on the block we've delivered in the spring, which is the new Power BI dashboard that we've released, or if you're a data scientist or you get very specific need, then guess what? You can export the data in your favorite data mart, and then you can slice it all day with whatever tool you've got. The reason I'm rushing to some of those is because I will be demoing that. But again, I want you to think that you as IT, you as guardian of the temple, you should put in place all those mechanisms so that you get the dashboard, you get the cockpit, and you're not flying blind, whether you're tracking usage or et cetera, et cetera. Similar to the slides that Mike was showing earlier, here's all the app innovation we did with groups. Again, on the platform and on the IT, I've given you a couple slides, but there's a lot of other things we've been doing in the past year based on your feedback. For instance, in the first section, I'll call out one that has been a top support issue, which is, okay, I created a group called Christophe Directs, and that was great when I was managing Christophe Direct. But how about if Christophe moves on and Mike takes over my team? Mike doesn't want the alias to be called Christophe Directs. It should be called Mike's Directs, right? Or how about if the group got created with Contoso on Microsoft.com, and I want to update the domain. Well, guess what? Since this summer, I think it was August, you can now update that domain and alias of the groups that got created. New SharePoint Admin Center, again, that's big, big news. You guys been asking us. Great, I get a SharePoint with every group, but I'm flying blind. I go to the admin center, I cannot see. The only way to see all those sites was to go to the PowerShell commandlet. I see people nod. Well, guess what? We're tackling this and a lot more with the new admin centers. On the governance front, one of the frequent requests, and I've been on the phone with a lot of you, which is, okay, Christophe, public by default is, I get it, but I'm not quite there in my organization, so can you make it private by default? So that's, again, something we've delivered, I think it was in the February timeframe, for both SharePoint and Outlook. And the list goes on, you know, multi-geo support, plenty of sessions this week. And then last one is like, I added this bullet, but it's true, we spend a lot of time on scalability and performance. You know, it's not something we make big noise, but as groups is being used by tens of millions of users, we are learning a ton. In real time, what can we do to improve, either to make the creation of group very snappy, should be seconds, or whether, you know, people, and you can have more groups with more users, and again, it's still snappy and the end users are not suffering. So this is just a recap of some of the other things we've been doing since last Ignite for the past year. Now, enough talking, let's switch to a couple demos. So the first demo I'll be doing is, I'll start with, again, some of the slides I was covering. So I'll start with naming policy, and I'll show you the experience from an end user. So in this case, I'm logged in as Grady. And with naming policy, again, the goal is to put some law and order in terms of the group names that are created. So here I'm in Yammer, and I click plus to create a group. And I'll say Happy Tuesday. You refresh my session. So Yammer in March just started supporting naming policy. Outlook and Teams already supported. So notice a couple things. Here we go. Happy Tuesday got prefixed by J underscore and got suffixed with R&D. What happened in this configuration, I put a fixed string of J underscore, and then the suffix is based on the user's department. Now this is just an example, and then the hypothesis, and then the other thing, you know, Yammer supports that I wanted to call out is Yammer also supports classification. So in our tenant, you know, the classification we've said is general, confidential, and highly confidential. So I create that group, and voila, I get the Happy Tuesday underscore R&D. So that's one way of surfacing naming policy within Yammer. But again, it goes a step further. How about if I type CEO? And notice that I type CEO. CEO just happens to be one of those block words that I put in my directory. So it's telling me, hey, that's not a lot. You got to choose another name. How about if Christophe is following his mother tongue and puts in some bad word? And again, you know, naming policy kicks in, and you know, obviously in the enterprise, we know everyone's mature, but maybe if your company is a university, maybe you want to put some bounds on check so people don't get too creative. But this is just an example of naming policy kicking in from an end user. Now, expiry, like I said, from an end user perspective, what happens is that persona that I'm using is the owner of a couple groups, and he's going to get notified to renew his group. So one of the group I own is electronic events, and in this case, I get this notification to renew the group, and I can just hit that single button to renew the group. Now, obviously, we didn't stop there. We fully understood that, you know, based on customer feedback, not everyone's checking their inbox, and not everyone might be in Outlook, right? Because the groups could be used by multiple endpoints. So another couple of places where we're surfacing this is actually something that Mike showed earlier. In the new group hub, you can go in here, and again, I see the electronic events and the engineering. You see this little banner where I'm also warned there that the group is going to get deleted in 26 days. Bless you. And then the last but not least, in Teams, again, if you see those little warning signs here, it tells me, and it also generates a notification that electronic events is about to expire on October 22nd. And then, I didn't show you in Outlook, but here I'm actually going to do in Teams. I get a little button called Renew Team. So in one click, I can extend that group. And from there on, you can see now it's valid till March 24, 2019. So again, the idea is we're on this journey that we want to make sure that the end users don't miss a beat, and if the group is really used, they should be warned that, that potentially it's going to get deleted, and hence they should renew. So that leads me into, let's switch persona, and show you how you configure expiry from an admin perspective. So a couple things. I'm going to go to Azure Active Directory. So I go here, Azure Active Directory, you go to Groups. And you get this little node called Expiration. And you click here. And you get this UI to configure the settings. And at a high level, you configure a lifetime. 180 days, that's our policy at Microsoft 6 months. And then you get the settings, which is ownerless groups. Now the idea is, we know organizations are dynamic, and people coming in and out of the organizations, whether they get fired or they leave on their goodwill. And you can have that use case where, let's say, if Christoph was the owner and he leaves Contoso, then that group is ownerless. So the last thing you don't want is no one to be aware that that group is going to get deleted. So we're giving you a setting where you can email your individuals, or in this case, what I did is I create a group, and I'm emailing in the group, right? And the reason I'm doing this, because I don't want the onus on being just one admin. I want to share a repository where if I'm handling the queue and all those requests, I can see the history of all those notifications. And then the other setting is you can set up expiry for all your groups, or like I recommended, first start with a set of targeted groups. And typically, what you can do is find out all the groups are inactive, and maybe that's the first batch you're going to run expiry on. And obviously, you can turn that off. So how does it look like from an admin, from an ownerless perspective? Here, I created, like I said, this ownerless groups, because I wanted to not just be, in this case, Alex's problem, but all the admins for this tenant. And for instance, this email, this Project Moonshot group is a group with no owner. And again, the admin is being notified that potentially they should step in. Whether they need to transition ownership to the manager or some of the group member, that's to be decided. But at the very least, they can renew the group till they figure out who really owns that, or maybe it can just be deleted, and that's okay. The other thing about ownerless groups, since it's a popular topic, is what you're seeing above is one of the code sample you can do, one of the results of using the API to take this a step further. And there's a session tomorrow about real-world best practices, and Thursday that shows you how you can do this stuff, which is, hey, can I generate an email with all the ownerless groups and maybe provide a hyperlink to Azure AD so I can take action? So again, the idea is we have out of the box, but you can also go a step further depending on what processes you have at your organization. Now, switching gears to guest access. I mentioned that one of the key features that we've launched this year is this notion of access reviews. And access review is this great thing where, in this case, I know I'm seeing a spelling mistake, but please review a product launch event in Contoso, and I click on this email. Oops. Just let me log in. And basically, you can configure that typically to notify the group owners. And in this case, I've got Christoph at Microsoft, so clearly he's not part of Contoso. And I can just approve or reject, as simple as that. Access reviews actually go a lot further than just booting guests out of the island. And by the way, you can configure whether it's weekly, monthly, whatever time frame, and it's super exhaustive. Where this goes a step further is, I'm not going to have time today, but you can also configure access reviews for a regular member of a group. So for instance, the leadership group or the hush-hush M&A group, merger and acquisition, maybe you want to revalidate every month. Should this guy be part of the group? Yes or no? And so again, don't think of access reviews to say, hey, is this guy legit or not, or should no longer be part of that group for guests, but also within. So definitely something to check if you never heard of Azure Active Directory access reviews. But again, think of this as another knob you've got to manage those users that are coming from the outsides and leveraging groups. With that, let me show you another thing that I've talked about, which is, again, giving you a glimpse of that new Power BI dashboard that we released back in the spring. So again, we don't have a lot of data in this tenant, so it doesn't have a lot of, and then that tenant got populated in March, but typically a lot of questions people ask is how much storage is consumed, not confused. Christoph is confused. How many SharePoint or sites are tied to groups, how much storage is consumed on the email portion, how many Yammer posts. So that's the out-of-the-box dashboard. But like everything with data, you always have your own report. And here's another example that, again, Martina is going to be demoing tomorrow in our session, that she's leveraging Azure Function on an out-of-the-box API to even take it a step further. And she's created this own beautiful dashboard. In this case, you can see ownerless groups or average number of owners per groups, and how many groups are private versus, and how many people are using the general classification, yada, yada, yada. So again, hopefully this is going to spark some your imagination, so how you can potentially use some of the out-of-the-box reporting to really tailor it to your own business needs. And that leads me into my last glimpse, which is the SharePoint Admin Center. In case you've never seen it, you definitely need to try this. And again, the pain point we're trying to solve is, as groups are getting created, with the old admin centers, you were flying blind. You could not see those modern site collections tied to groups. It was just not listed. And so if I click here, this is the home page, and you can go here and click on active sites, and you get this beautiful filter on the right-hand side. Let me refresh. You're going to see the ability to filter all the sites by different types. And you can, yes, filter all the sites that are not tied to groups, or filter, different type. But here you see Office 365 Groups Connected site. So voila, I'm actually visualizing all those team sites that are tied to groups. And obviously, it's not just about watching the laundry list of all those sites, but ideally, you want to start taking action. Do you want to tie this site to a hub site? Or do I want to delete it? Do I want to change the owner? I've also got some quick action on the right-hand side. And then the other thing is, how about if we give the SharePoint admin the ability to manage lifecycle? And that's what we're doing with this deleted type. I can go in here, and maybe I want to restore the Wednesday portal group. I go, voila, I get a little warning, everything is going to come back, and with one click, I'm going to restore this group. Again, the idea is to put you in the driver's seats. The other thing I want to add for this is we're learning a ton on a day-to-day basis. So definitely vote with your clicks, or you get our contact information, and obviously the SharePoint team is here in full force this week if you get feedback. There's a dedicated session on this on Thursday morning, so definitely attend that. With that, let's go back to slides, and let's talk about getting started.
Great. How about a round of applause for Christoph? Awesome admin demos. So much great power there. All right, so now that we've covered the new features we shipped over the past year and how to manage these groups using all of our administrative controls, let's talk a little bit about how to get started with groups, and then we'll close with our forward-looking roadmap. A frequent question we get is, how do I get started with Office 365 groups? We're taking a slightly different spin to answering this question this year. It really boils down to two options. Rather than focusing on just who has access to that create group button, we really want to make you think through that life cycle of who creates groups, what services do they use that are attached to these groups, and then how do you handle the life cycle once people are finished using these groups. It really boils down to these two options outlined in blue and orange on the screen. The first approach is around enabling your entire organization for self-service. This puts group creation into the most hands possible. It allows everybody in the company to create Office 365 groups, plans, team sites. It's a good option. In this scenario, you can also implement certain compliance controls like Christoph showed around naming policy, expiry, and life cycle. And you can also implement certain provisioning workflows for how these groups are created. The second option here is a more controlled rollout where you enable groups for a subset of your users. So I want to make everyone aware that the Groups platform does support creating a security group where a limited number of users will have access to create Office 365 groups. I get this question a lot. This would allow you to extend group creation capabilities to a smaller number of users before rolling it out to your entire organization. This is good if you want to start with a pilot, if you have a large company, if you have several different divisions. But I think the goal here should be to have this pilot and then have various checkpoints where then you can start extending this to additional users inside your organization. In this scenario, you can also have custom provisioning workflows. There's actually a great session tomorrow by Martina and Sahil that walks through how to capture user requests when groups are needed. You could create something like a SharePoint site where a user would request a group and then it'll get routed to you or someone on your team to approve. That's great. I think one of the great benefits of the first scenario of enabling self-service for everyone is that it really gives them access to the variety of tools available through groups. It also reduces some of the risk that gets introduced where a user might think, oh, you know, I really need a particular type of chat experience or a particular type of files experience, and then bringing their own apps into the enterprise. For both of these scenarios, there's a variety of features that span both extended self-service and controlled rollout. You'll get access to reporting, monitoring, analytics, everything that Christoph viewed. Now, the next question that I usually get is, well, Mike, how does Microsoft manage Office 365 groups? You're a pretty big company, right? We are in a very unique position. We have over 100,000 employees, vendors, contractors, and we need access to collaboration tools as well. The short answer here is yes, we have enabled self-service for all employees at Microsoft, so anyone who's an employee can go create an Office 365 group, but we've done it in a very, very controlled manner. We do have group creation tied to dynamic membership. So we are using rules to drive who can actually create Office 365 groups. We have implemented things like blocked words, so I cannot go create that Satya Nadella group and try to intercept his emails. And also, we have implemented expiry. So we have a very strict lifecycle policy. Within 180 days, a group will be deprovisioned if it's not renewed by a group owner. So we are working through and using these same exact features that we're shipping in the platform. And it's really been a good experience to understand how our customers would go about using these features as well. We also have a set of scripts that will run that will look for various properties on a group. So for example, if you take classification, every group must be flagged as being general, confidential, or highly confidential. If it's not flagged with a classification, a default classification will be set. And then, for example, if it's set to highly confidential, we will disable certain features like external guest access or sharing. On Thursday, we have a scripting session that I'll walk through and provide a couple of code examples on how to find groups that don't have classification set or update certain properties. So definitely check that out if you want some more insight in how that works. We are also looking at various membership reviews so that we do have to reattest guests and those scenarios where content has been shared outside of your organization. And we're also looking at how to implement custom policies around group owners. We have the same scenario a lot of our customers do where you might have a group owner leave the company and all of a sudden you need someone to step up and take ownership of that group. So we're doing a lot of work there to enforce two-owner policies where you have that backup redundancy so we can manage groups well across our organization. So when you look at the processes that have been put in place at Microsoft, it really helps drive this mission that the team has created, which was to empower employees while protecting content, keeping compliant, and holding employees accountable. The empower part really transitions into the fact that we know there's a set of distinct behaviors that individuals perform on a day-to-day basis, and there's really several different aspects to collaboration. It's not just about one particular feature or one particular user job. It's really tying together a set of features to enable these scenarios across the suite. When we think back to the demo we saw in the beginning of the session around the live events, right? It wasn't just one feature. It wasn't just creating a meeting. It was actually running a town hall email and engaging with our employees and publishing that event. In the old days, I'd have a recording on my machine somewhere, I'd have to upload it, send out a link, et cetera, et cetera. Now, using Teams, these things are published automatically right into the meeting space. So it really allows employees to be more effective and accomplish more on their day-to-day basis. This is a pretty deep topic, so there is another session on Thursday that goes a little further into teamwork across M365. But I think the key takeaway here is that it's not just about one feature, it's really about these scenarios that we're trying to enable with Office 365 groups. All right, so when we think about those scenarios, I want to just double click into two aspects. One is communication, and the other is file collaboration. Because when it comes down to it, we can talk about theory and teamwork, but a lot of times customers just need to know, hey, where do I start? Well, when you think about communication, like we discussed and framed in the beginning, there are three different communication modalities, right? We have Outlook, which is super powerful for email. We have Teams, which is great for that informal, persistent chat, and then Yammer for connecting across your organization. So a place where a lot of customers start is with email. They are very familiar with using distribution lists to send an email to a group of people. So lots of times this is a natural transition into Office 365 groups. The starting point for a lot of folks is really that Outlook desktop client, right? So if you're on older builds of Outlook, you should really focus on deploying that Office 365 Pro Plus because this will get you the latest and greatest groups experience in Outlook. If you think back to the keynote yesterday with Satya, he really tried to enforce that we can't be leaders in our industry without running the leading technologies. And so this is really going to bring your clients up to the latest and greatest, and you're going to constantly get all the new feature updates that we ship on a weekly or monthly basis. So getting Outlook current is key. Upgrading those distribution lists is a great step. We have several different entry points inside Outlook and inside the admin experiences where you can upgrade distribution lists with one click. And the great thing about this scenario is you maintain the address that's used to email that distribution list when it becomes an Office 365 group, and you maintain all that membership as well. We have links on the right-hand side that walk through this if this scenario pertains to you, so definitely check those out. Second, Teams is obviously got a lot of traction. It's a great experience for chat and meetings. And so every time you create a Microsoft Teams team, you are creating an Office 365 group under the covers. Some folks might not know you can actually activate an existing Office 365 group for Microsoft Teams. So if you have a group that's being used in Outlook and you want to try chat, you can go into Teams, you can add an existing group, and then you can interact with your group in Teams. So that is a great option. It's probably being shown quite a few times this week. And then lastly, when we think about connecting across the organization through Yammer, the 2 points we want to make are one around identity. So get your organization to use Office 365 as its primary identity provider. This will make that transition to Yammer much more seamless because we're really heading in a direction where basically every Yammer group will be connected to an Office 365 group. Second, Yammer has had a scenario where you could have multiple networks, and we're really suggesting that customers consolidate their networks into a single network because this will facilitate some of the cross-tenant collaboration much easier as we get deeper into Office 365 groups. So if you are a heavy Yammer user, you can check out this link around Yammer and Office 365 groups. It goes a little further into that scenario. All right, next, like I said, I want to talk about files for just a minute. The previous slide talks about the three communication modalities. There is some overlap there sometimes, depending on how your teams function. SharePoint's really a scenario that cuts across all three. Regardless if you're collaborating in Teams, Outlook, or Yammer, there's going to be some file sharing and collaboration that happens. So here, I think, very similar to the Outlook client, you want to make sure that you're running the latest and greatest with SharePoint. There are several tools available for both on-premise migrations to online, as well as online templates for various site collections that'll bring SharePoint to a modern, updated experience. This will let you take advantage of more scenarios across groups, let you link them up to hub sites, and really bring them forward to this day and age. We'll see some of this today in the demos I'm about to show. You can customize some of these sites, and then like Christoph showed, definitely leverage the new SharePoint admin portal. So this is a great way to get insight into the sites that are connected across your groups. So there's a few links here around connecting SharePoint team sites to Office 365 groups. We've done a lot of work over the past year here to deliver on a key scenario for our users where they have an existing SharePoint site that has a lot of rich content, and they want to use that as a starting point for their Office 365 groups. Now you can actually take that site and you can upgrade that into an Office 365 group. So we'll show that in a minute. All right. So given that, now I think we'll transition to our roadmap and talk about some of the features we're about to deliver.
Thank you, Mike. So we'll talk about some of those high-level investments, and after that, we'll give you a couple demos. So at a high level, like I said earlier, I talked about expiry, and we got a ton of feedback from customers. We're on this journey to provide in-app notification that whether your users is living and breathing in SharePoint, in Planner, in Staff Hub, wherever it is, the user should not have to leave this app and be warned that potentially their group might be deleted. So that's the first point. The next point, which is taking it a step further, which is also some of the feedback we get from you, is we can already detect that the group is being used. Like people are co-authoring documents, people are using Teams, people are posting on Yammer. So why don't you have a mechanism where the groups, if it's active, gets automatically renewed. So that's some of the stuff we're working on. And by the way, I should have started with that roadmap. First of all, this is not an exhaustive list. We definitely have a rich backlog. Those are the key features we're currently working on. And then the third point, which you're probably asking about each one of those that we're going to be talking about, which is when. And the answer is everything's going to follow the fast track for a roadmap, and then the different status as we reach target release and as we start the rollout on some of those features. So I talk about expiry. And the next one is this notion of a group admin role. One of the things that we've learned is, in the past, to manage group lifecycle or to add members, there's really one role that enabled you to do all those end-to-end scenarios, which was the global admin. And the feedback you give us loud and clear is global admin is a lot of permissions just to add Mike to a group or just to restore a group. And so feedback loud and clear, and there's two things we're doing. First of all, we're augmenting existing roles. So the SharePoint admin role, hey, if my day-to-day job is to manage those SharePoint sites, I should be in the driver's seats to create a SharePoint team site backed by groups, to restore one, to add members, yada, 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 right? I don't need to bother with my global admin colleague every time I need to do one of those actions. So that's one. And then the other, we're giving the same thing, all that lifecycle permissions to the team's admin role. So there's 2 new roles, and there's a session this week that talks about that. So augmenting those specialist role. In addition to augmenting the specialist role, we will be introducing at the end of the year a new group admin role, which will be dedicated to manage Office 365 groups. So again, if you're not the SharePoint person, if you're not the Teams person, your job is just to manage, everything around lifecycle membership around groups. We'll have a new we'll have a new role that you'll be able to leverage pretty soon. The next thing, we already give you a glimpse that there's a number of improvements around the different assets we have to manage groups, and one of them is, in addition, I'll show you a glimpse of the new SharePoint Admin Centers. I'll give you a glimpse of the new Teams Admin Center. But we also realized that a lot of people live and breathe in that main groups node in the main Microsoft Admin Center, especially if I'm let's say a help desk specialist and I'm going through the queue of all those requests, this is probably where I'm living and breathing every day. So we are committed to improving that experience. We made a number of announcements yesterday on improving the new user experience to manage users. Well, that same philosophy and theme to help you take quick actions and it's snappy is going to come to the group experience. There's a session tomorrow that goes deeper into that. Again, all about putting you in the hero seat. This next bullet is something I'll go a little deeper later on, but the idea is with groups, enabling self-service, you do want to enforce policies. And what you've asked us, say, Christoph, I don't want to be running spaghetti code and have to run scripts after the fact to see how many groups get guests or added someone with that contoso. You want to be proactive. There's already groups that are, let's say, acquisition, that's financial data. Those groups are hush-hush that you should never be able to invite someone outside of the Active Directory. It's just your internal policy. So happy to introduce today the notion that we're going to give you a unified group classification powered by the Microsoft Information Protection label. If you don't know what I'm talking about the Security Compliance Center. So I'll be giving you the very first glimpse of this feature today.
All right, these features are really going to help improve the management at scale. And that's because when you look at a scenario like Teams, it works really great if you have a Microsoft Teams team that has 5, 10, 20, maybe even 100 people. But as the teams grow, or you just naturally have a larger team, if you have everyone in your building on a particular team to notify them, or all the sellers in the Western region, it's not feasible to expect one person to continuously manage a flat list of users. That's why this week Teams has announced support for dynamic membership, which we'll show today. This allows you to create a rule that will actually drive who gets pulled into that team, and now Teams will acknowledge it. Now, given that, we know that our users have been creating a variety of different groups over the years. Sometimes they have included security groups or distribution lists, and we know that very frequently our customers want to reuse some of these groups to help drive membership in their Office 365 groups. That's why moving forward we're taking a very close look at how we can use some of these existing groups that have been created in your organization to drive that membership in your new Office 365 groups. If I have a finance team that has 12 of my financial analysts and I want to add them to a new group for Q1 close and then Q2 close, it's not very efficient to have to add the same flat list of people over and over again. I might want to reuse one of those groups to drive that membership in the future. So that's one area that we're taking a close look at over the next year. All right, so given this roadmap, let's take a look at a few forward-looking demos. All right, so here I'm in SharePoint. This is a SharePoint site collection built in 2015 at our first Ignite in Chicago. Was anybody there in Chicago? Oh, awesome. I think we should give out little badges for each year that you attend Ignite. So here, this is a beautiful site collection, right? In 2012, this was beautiful. So the first thing that I want to do is modernize my SharePoint site, right? That's what we talked about earlier in the presentation. And like I said, our customers, they want to take an existing site, bring it forward, and use this as the basis for their new Office 365 group. So now, as a site owner, I can come in here to my gear and click Connect to a new Office 365 group. Here I have a notification that I'm associating this team site to a new Office 365 group, and it's telling me we're going to use our existing content and bring this forward into a new group. So here I could give this a new group name if I wanted to. It's checking to make sure that it's available. I'm maintaining my site URL, so if anyone had this bookmark previously, then they're set. And I have access to my privacy settings that are available and set inside my organization. So now when I click Connect Group, it's going out and provisioning a brand new Office 365 group. And you can see here what it's done is it's pulled forward the owners of that site collection to be new group owners. And it's pulled in the members of my site collection as well to be group members. So here, if I want to, I can add myself as a owner, and then I'll hit Finish. Now, as this provisioning is completing, my owners are being added to my group, and now I have this great, beautiful site collection. I have links to my notebook, to my documents, and you can see here I have access to that great group card that we saw earlier inside Outlook. How do you like that? Great, so now I've used that as a basis for my new Office 365 group. So when I flip over to this site here, this is a site I had upgraded. This is a brand new feature that we haven't shown before, but the next request we've gotten is that our customers want to take that SharePoint site that's enabled for a group and enable it for Microsoft Teams directly. Today it's a two-step process, right? You have to then go into Teams. So what the team has been busy doing is building out new functionality to activate a SharePoint site collection from groups for Teams right here in SharePoint. So here I click Create My Team. Now we're going off. We're connecting this to Microsoft Teams, and this reloads in my browser. I'll have my team right here that's connected from SharePoint. So here's my M365 message group. I can come down here. I can start typing. I can throw in like a GIF if I want, and say, great, we're set. Now we're in Microsoft Teams, and we've automatically enabled our SharePoint site collection from our group. How do you like that? Cool. Great, so the last demo I'll show before handing off to Christoph is the fact you can take those sites that have been created and you can now connect them to your hub sites in SharePoint. The hub site concept was introduced a little while ago, and it allows you to connect multiple sites together so that the content is aggregated, and then you can perform search and other activities across these connected sites. So here I have a hub site in SharePoint where I have multiple sites connected, and when I flip over to that new SharePoint Admin Center, like Christoph mentioned earlier, I can filter on the sites that are connected to my Office 365 groups. So here I can look, oh great, these are all Office 365 group connected, and I only have a few that are actually connected to my hub sites. So if I want to, I could select business development, I could click hub site here, my toolbar, associate with a hub site, and now I have all of the options for all the hub sites that have been created throughout my organization. So when I hit save, now this site, which was part of my group, is connected to my hub site in SharePoint. So if I flip over and I start searching here for like business development, you'll see now I have, oops, where'd it go? Hold on a sec. Business development. Let's try that again. Okay, well, my search is a little bit shy. It probably asks for an aggregation. But here I've actually taken the site, connected it to my hub, and now it'll aggregate all that content with my other sites. How do you like that? Great, and I'm going to hand off to Christoph.
So thank you, Mike. First thing I'll show you is some of those enhancements we're doing in Teams. And one of the things we actually demoed yesterday in the Teams session is this notion that Teams now support dynamic membership. That's something we've supported in the past in Outlook and SharePoint and other apps, and Teams now supports it. So here I got a group called Business Development, and it's a little hard to see, but a lot of people have been added manually, and then suddenly Deborah added 80 people, and then 14 people got added. So to prove to you that this is where the magic is, here I am in Azure Active Directory. I go to the business development, and this is a group where membership is defined dynamically, and I've got 96 members, and basically there's a dynamic rule that say pull all the users that are based on those attributes. So that's the first demo. Again, making things scale, so you don't put the onus on let's say one person to keep track of all the people that should be part of the team. The next thing I'll show you is, again, similar to the new SharePoint Admin Centers. Happy to introduce this week that there's a new node here in Teams that's brand new here in this particular demo tenant, which is Manage Teams. So here you can see in this demo tenant, I've got 17 teams, and I can start managing individual ones. And again, like I mentioned, the Teams admin role will have full access to editing groups, deleting groups, adding members. So you can see here I've selected a specific groups. I can edit, I can change the property, et cetera, et cetera. So that just makes it easier to either scale for teams in terms of membership, but also managing teams. The next thing I'll show you is this notion of using this new Microsoft Information Protection and labels. So let me show you the end user experience. Here I'm going to create a team site, and you're familiar with this. I'm logged in as an end user, and I'll call it the MIP demo. And so far, you say, Christoph, business as usual. Absolutely. So here, by default, it's using this label called General. And like I mentioned earlier, we switched the default privacy in SharePoint to be private, but I can still pick public, right? That's the behavior you're seeing today. Well, let me change it to confidential, because I know that MIP demo is actually really hush-hush. Now, you see how this field now is read-only? I can't change it, right? A privacy has been kicked in, and voila. So to the end users, it's fairly transparent. Yeah, I know it's confidential because that's customer data, whatever. And I click Finish. And to prove it to you that there's definitely a lot more, you also see for this specific policy, you also have a device policy, and that's what you're seeing here. And voila. So the idea is, again, for the end users, very transparent in terms of how I create those assets. But on the back end, we're applying policy based on this label. Let me take it a step further, and let me show you how this works. So security and compliance, classification, you go to labels, and here I've created those three labels, general, confidential, and highly confidential. So I'm just going to select confidential, and then let me show you the settings that did all the magic. Here, site on group settings, And voila. So I can enforce that the group is private for this particular label, and maybe I want to make sure that I want to turn off guest access, and here we put a managed device policy. Now this is a preview. This is still hasn't rolled out. You know, it's going to be coming, but hopefully you realize the value that over time, this is going to make your life easier to make sure that, you know, whatever people create abides with your policy, and you don't need to step in after the fact and slap Christophe because maybe he's oversharing or adding guests to something that doesn't abide with your own internal policies. So let me switch to slides and wrap up the presentation. So again, this is a dedicated slide on what I just talked about because this is fairly new, and I know you probably have a ton of questions. There are some sessions this week. There's one of them here listed that goes into more detail, but hopefully you get the idea. The idea is not only we're converging in terms of using one source of truth for labels powered by the Security and Compliance Center, but again, it's not just about applying label, it's about applying policies. Okay, plenty of content. We've already pitched in a few. There's like today, I've got later Ask Us Anything session if you're interested. There's a Groups and Outlook and a gazillion other sessions, so definitely download that and watch all those sessions. So wrapping up before you all leave the sessions, hopefully there's 3 things we covered today. First thing is we talk about groups on how does it fit in Microsoft 365 teamwork. It's definitely something that cannot be ignored and you should look at. We've talked about administration on how you can govern groups at scale so you can enable self-service, and then we've talked about getting started. There's 3 things we want you to do. First of all, enable self-service with governance, drive usage using some of the fast-track resources, and last but not least, and we mean it, give us feedback on all the things we've talked about or the things we didn't talk about. With that, enjoy the rest of the event, and happy Tuesday.